Hey folks, JG here from Visture Property Group, and do I got a treat for you today? So I'm going to play for you a podcast next, and this is a really cool artificial intelligence tool. It's an AI tool that what it's done it's taken, I think it's 18 different elements of different talks I've done, different YouTube videos I've done, different webinars I've done, different guides, different presentations, different documents, different PDFs. It's combined all of that, which was hours and hours and hours and hours and hours of content, into a 23-minute podcast, roughly thereabouts, and it's really great. So it's not perfect because generated by AI, but I've been through it. I really like it. I think it's quite good. So listen in, and I think you'll enjoy it too.
Welcome back to the Deep Dive. Are you ready to explore? Today we're diving into the world of coach homes. They're like those income-generating superheroes, hiding in plain sight right in our backyards.
It's pretty cool. I mean, think about it. We've got YouTube videos from Visture Property Management. They're really making waves in the coach home world.
Oh yeah, they're doing some amazing stuff. And we've also got some excerpts from a guide on property densification, plus a webinar all about turning coach homes into those cash flow dynamos everyone dreams about.
Yeah, those webinars are packed with great info.
So, get ready to see your property with a whole new perspective. Let's dive in.
People are totally rethinking how they see their properties. Like, it used to be so simple. You'd see a single-family home, and that was it, one home. But now, it's like everyone's seeing dollar signs popping up all over their backyards.
I know, right? And the best part, we're not talking about squeezing someone into a glorified shed.
No, not at all.
Coach homes. They're sometimes called Accessory Dwelling Units, or ADUs. They're real homes.
Like proper home.
Typically between 600 and 900 square feet.
Mm-hmm.
Bedrooms, bathrooms, kitchens. The whole 9 yards.
It's amazing what they can fit in that space.
Oh, and get this. Visture even converted an old horse barn that had been turned into a garage into a beautiful coach home.
Wow. Talk about a transformation.
Right.
It really shows you how much ingenuity is out there. And you know it makes sense when you think about it. Housing costs are going through the roof.
Yeah.
And there just aren't enough options for people.
It's a real problem.
Coach homes. They offer a more affordable alternative, both for homeowners and renters, especially in those areas where land is at a premium.
It's like everyone's waking up and realizing, hey, I've got this untapped potential right in my backyard. And you know what else is interesting? It's not just a grassroots movement anymore. Governments are getting involved too.
Mm-hmm.
Ontario's Bill 23, for example. It's made it so much easier to add these units to your property.
Oh, yeah, I've heard about that.
It allows for a minimum of 3 units on one piece of land.
Seriously.
That's a big deal.
It is. It really is. Municipalities are finally waking up to the fact that we need more housing. And they're actually changing the rules to encourage this kind of densification.
Which is great to see.
It really is. Even Edmonton and Calgary are looking at similar policies.
Really?
It's a sign of the times, for sure.
It seems like it's catching on everywhere. So for those of us who are thinking about jumping on the coach home bandwagon, how do we spot those properties?
Right.
The ones with that golden backyard potential?
Well, our sources seem to agree. Raised bungalows are a great place to start, especially those with big backyards.
Yeah, those are ideal.
And then properties with spacious side yards, or existing duplexes and triplexes with enough land. Those are good candidates too.
Makes sense.
And of course, detached garages, often prime for conversion.
A detached garage transforming into an income-generating suite. It's like alchemy, turning something ordinary into gold.
It really is.
But hold on, before we get carried away, visions of rent checks dancing in our heads. There's that phrase everyone keeps bringing up, due diligence.
Right. Visture can't emphasize this enough.
They really hammer it home.
Local bylaws are your first hurdle. Lot coverage, setbacks, parking regulations. You've got to know the rules of the game before you even start playing.
It's like reading the instruction manual before you put together that IKEA furniture.
Right. Exactly. And you know what's really interesting? They shared a story about turning a single-family home into 8 units after severing the land.
8 units. Wow. I
Oh.
never would have imagined that.
It's pretty incredible.
So let's say we found our dream property, the bylaws are all on our side, and we're ready to roll up our sleeves and get started. What's the next crucial step?
Design.
Yeah.
And I don't just mean making it look pretty.
There's more to it than that.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Visture actually had one coach home leased before construction even finished, all thanks to its smart design.
Wow. That's a testament to the power of good design.
It really is.
And it makes sense. A well-designed space is going to attract better tenants
Absolutely.
and command higher rent. So what kind of specific design elements did they highlight?
Things like maximizing natural light and incorporating features like eat-in kitchen peninsulas.
Those little touches that make a big difference.
Exactly. They can make a huge difference in both functionality and appeal.
And ultimately your bottom line.
That's the key.
So it's about thinking like a tenant, imagining what would make them want to call this place home. Speaking of homes, those don't build themselves, do they?
Unfortunately not.
So let's talk about the construction side of things. What kind of timelines and costs are we looking at?
Well, Visture, they aim for a pretty impressive turnaround time
Oh, yeah.
from design to a rented-out coach home, all within 90 days of getting the permit.
That's fast.
They've really got their process down to a science.
I'm guessing those DIY projects we see on TV don't usually move that quickly.
Not quite. DIY can easily take a year or two.
Wow.
And while it might seem tempting to save on labor costs, you've got to factor in the potential for delays, unexpected expenses, and all the stress of managing the project yourself.
It's not for the faint of heart.
No, it's not. Sometimes that professional expertise is worth its weight in gold.
And speaking of gold, let's talk about the cost of this construction magic. What does Visture typically charge?
They estimate around $315 per square foot for construction, all inclusive.
Okay.
So for a 700 square foot coach home, you're looking at roughly $220,000.
That's a decent chunk of change.
It is. But they also pointed out a surprising fact about prefab homes.
What's that?
They're often more expensive than people think.
Really?
You might pay between $400 and $600 per square foot, just for the shell. And then you've still got excavation and foundation costs on top of that.
Wow. Prefab being more expensive, that's not what you usually hear.
Nope.
It's a good reminder that there's always more to the story than meets the eye. So before we get too deep into the financial side of things, are there any other essential things we need to consider before bringing in the construction crew? I mean, we've covered bylaws, but what about those hidden gotchas? The things that could derail a project?
Parking, that's a big one. Visture highlighted this as a potential deal breaker. In many areas where they operate, you need at least 4 parking spots for a coach home project.
4?
Yeah. It can be tricky, especially in urban settings.
That's a lot of parking spots.
It is, but they did mention that tandem parking, where cars are parked one behind the other, might be allowed.
Oh, interesting.
So it's worth investigating. It could be a real lifesaver.
I have to look into that. You know what? I actually remember a tip from J.G. Visture's CEO. That could save you a bundle.
Oh,
Call the hydro company before buying a property.
no, that's smart.
He learned the hard way that you need to make sure
Mm-hmm.
that the existing electrical transformer can handle an additional unit.
Oh, I see.
Otherwise, you might be looking at a $10,000 bill for a new one.
Ouch.
Right.
That's a fantastic tip. It really underscores the importance of doing your homework, anticipating those hidden costs.
Couldn't agree more.
And speaking of access, that's another thing Visture emphasized.
What about it?
Construction equipment needs to be able to get to the backyard. Make sure there's enough space. Or be prepared to do some demolition to clear a path.
So it's not just about what's happening in the backyard. It's about the entire property.
Exactly.
And what about septic systems? I imagine those come with their own set of challenges.
Absolutely. If your property has a septic system, you'll need to navigate a whole other layer of regulations.
Makes sense.
And let's not forget about building a solid team.
Oh, yeah, that's crucial.
A skilled designer, a reliable contractor, a project manager to keep everything on track, and a mortgage broker who understands these projects. They're all essential pieces of the puzzle.
So we've covered the basics, what coach homes are, those all-important bylaws, design, construction, and some key things to watch out for. But now let's get to the heart of the matter. How do we transform these coach homes into those cash flow powerhouses everyone keeps talking about? After all, that's why we're all here, right?
I think JG had a great line in the webinar. He said, "Cash flow isn't found, it's created."
I like that.
It's such a powerful mindset shift.
It really is.
Though coach homes, when done strategically, can be incredibly lucrative, even more so than the typical returns you'd see from a duplex.
Okay, now you've got my attention.
Good.
Tell me more about this cash flow magic. What kind of returns are we talking about here?
Well, in the webinar, JG presented a compelling case study that really showcases the potential ROI of a coach home project.
I'm all ears.
He breaks down the numbers, showing how even after factoring in renovation costs and mortgage payments, The cash flow can be significant.
Significant cash flow. That sounds pretty good to me.
It is.
But I'm guessing it's not just about building a coach home
Yeah.
and watching the money roll in.
Nope.
There's got to be some serious financial planning involved, right?
You got it. Both JG and Dahlia, the mortgage expert from the webinar, stress the importance of meticulous financial planning.
So it's not something you just jump into.
Definitely not.
What kind of financing options did they highlight?
Well, they talked about things like secured lines of credit, second mortgages,
Yeah.
and construction loans, each with its own advantages and disadvantages.
Okay, that makes sense. But what about after the coach home is built? How do we make sure we're not swimming in debt? How do we turn this investment into actual profit?
That's where exit refinancing comes in.
Exit refinancing.
It's all about refinancing the property after the coach home is complete, ideally at a higher value.
So you're basically taking advantage of that increased value.
Exactly. This lets you recoup your initial investment and potentially even pocket some extra cash.
So it's like a financial victory lap.
I like that. They also talked about understanding carrying costs, those expenses that can pop up during the project.
Like what?
Interest payments on your loan fees, unexpected delays. Those are the usual suspects.
Right.
But you also need to factor in things like landscaping and paving.
Okay, so there are a lot of moving parts.
There are.
And I'm guessing building block number 4 is all about using leverage strategically.
You got it.
So did Dahlia have any specific advice on that?
She actually cautioned against the temptation to put down the least amount of money possible. Yeah, she stressed that high leverage, while it might seem attractive, can actually increase your risk, especially if things don't go exactly as planned.
That's a good point. So it's about finding that sweet spot between maximizing your returns and keeping those risks in check.
Exactly.
Which leads us to building block number 5, right? Understanding and managing interest rate risk.
Right.
But no one has a crystal ball for predicting interest rates.
True. But Dahlia follows those prominent analysts and encourages investors to look at the big picture, current economic trends, historical data, to make educated guesses about where rates might be headed.
So it's all about being prepared for those fluctuations
Yeah.
and adapting to whatever the market throws your way.
Exactly.
I have to admit, all this financial talk is making my head spin a little.
It can be a lot to take in.
Are there any resources out there that can help us navigate these choppy waters? I mean, besides this podcast, of course.
Well, Dahlia and her team at Streetwise Mortgages offer a fantastic service, a complimentary financing roadmap.
Well, that's helpful.
They sit down with you, look at your individual situation, and help you create a personalized plan that addresses all 5 building blocks.
It's like having a financial GPS for your coach home project.
Exactly.
So we've covered a lot of ground here, from construction loans to exit refinancing, sneaky carrying costs, and even those interest rate roller coasters. It's clear that the financial side of coach homes is every bit as crucial as the design and construction.
I think what's really fascinating is how this isn't just about crunching numbers on a spreadsheet. It's about making informed decisions that directly impact your financial future.
It's about taking control.
Exactly.
I'm so glad we had this conversation because I was starting to feel a bit overwhelmed by all the financial jargon, but now it's starting to make sense.
Good.
Before we move on to part 3, where we'll explore those unique opportunities of garage gold conversions and land severance, I'm going to pause for a moment and ask you, what's resonating with you most so far? What's standing out as the most important takeaway?
For me, it's that sense of empowerment. It's realizing that with the right knowledge and planning, we can create our own financial opportunities.
We're not just at the mercy of the market.
Exactly. We can transform those underutilized spaces into income-generating assets. It's about taking control of our financial futures, and that's incredibly exciting.
I completely agree. It's like we're not just talking about building coach homes. We're talking about building financial freedom.
That's a great way to put it.
So let's take all this newfound knowledge and dive into those garage gold conversions and the fascinating world of land severance in part 3.
Sounds good to me.
Stay tuned. Welcome back to the deep dive. Before the break, we were getting into the nitty-gritty of coach home financing. And I have to say, I'm ready to learn more about turning these dreams into reality.
Well, in the webinar, Dahlia, the mortgage expert, she laid out a really helpful framework for tackling the financial side of things.
Oh, tell me more.
She called them the 5 building blocks of financing.
Okay. 5 building blocks. That sounds manageable.
It is. It breaks it down into bite-sized pieces.
So walk me through it.
Imagine you're at the starting line, ready to build your dream coach home. The first building block is financing the actual construction. You need the cash to make it happen.
Makes sense. So what are our options there? I'm guessing we can't just pull out a wad of cash from under the mattress.
Probably not, but Dahlia outlined several options. If you have enough equity in your property, the least disruptive route might be a secured line of credit, in second position with your current lender.
So you're basically adding to your existing mortgage.
Exactly, which can be less costly and complicated than starting from scratch.
So you're leveraging what you already have, but what if you don't have enough equity in that specific property?
You could consider getting a line of credit on another property in your portfolio, or you could even tap into your private network for a second mortgage.
Okay, so there are options.
There are. These options might come with higher interest rates, but they can help you bridge the gap.
And then, of course, there's the traditional construction loan.
Right. Specifically designed for these types of projects.
Construction loans. They sound pretty straightforward. But are there any hidden traps we should be aware of?
There are a few things to keep in mind. Construction loans usually come as a package deal, one part to pay off existing mortgages, and another to finance the construction itself.
Oh, okay.
The catch is the total loan can't be more than a certain percentage of the property's future value.
So you're going to need a solid appraisal to
Exactly.
make sure it all works out.
And that's where that as is and as a complete appraisal comes into play.
Right. It's like getting a sneak peek into the future value of your property.
Exactly.
Okay. So we've got the money to build. What happens next? How do we make sure this whole coach home investment actually pays off?
That's building block number 2, validating your exit strategy.
Exit strategy.
It's like having a plan B, but in this case, it's more like a plan A+.
I like it.
The goal is to refinance the property once the coach home is complete, preferably at a higher value.
So you can recoup your initial investment.
Exactly. And maybe even make some profit.
It's like a financial victory lap.
Exactly.
But how do we make sure that exit refinancing actually happens?
Dahlia really emphasized planning ahead.
What does that look like?
Look at your credit score, your income, the equity you have in the property, even your overall portfolio size.
So it's about knowing where you stand financially.
Right. And think about projected rental income too.
Okay.
It's about understanding what lenders are looking for and making sure you're in a strong position to qualify for that refinancing.
So it's like getting pre-approved for a mortgage, but for your exit strategy.
Exactly.
That's smart. Okay, so let's say we've got our financing secured. Our exit strategy is solid, and construction is underway. Are there any other financial surprises lurking around the corner?
That brings us to building block number 3, understanding carrying costs.
Carrying costs.
These are those sneaky expenses that can pop up during the project.
Oh, I bet.
Interest payments on your loan fees, unexpected delays. Those are the usual suspects. But you also need to factor in things like landscaping and paving.
Things you might not think about right away.
Exactly.
And time really is money, especially when you have those construction loans ticking away.
Absolutely.
And speaking of loans, I'm guessing building block number 4 is all about using leverage strategically.
You got it.
So did Dahlia have any specific advice on that?
She actually cautioned against the temptation to put down the least amount of money possible.
Really?
Yeah, she stressed that high leverage, while it might seem attractive, can actually increase your risk.
Especially if things don't go according to plan.
Exactly.
So it's about finding that balance
Right.
between maximizing your returns
Yeah,
and keeping those risks in check.
exactly.
Which leads us to building block number 5, understanding and managing interest rate risk.
Right.
But no one has a crystal ball for predicting interest rates.
True. But Dahlia follows those prominent analysts. And she encourages investors to look at the big picture, current economic trends, historical data, to make educated guesses about where rates might be headed.
So it's all about being prepared for those fluctuations
Yeah,
and adapting to whatever the market throws your way.
exactly.
All right. All this financial talk is making me realize I need some expert help.
Well, Dahlia and her team at Streetwise Mortgages offer a fantastic service, a complimentary financing roadmap.
Oh, that sounds helpful.
They sit down with you,
Yeah.
look at your individual situation, and help you create a personalized plan that addresses all 5 building blocks.
It's like having a financial GPS for your coach home project.
Precisely.
So we've covered a lot of ground here.
Yeah.
From construction loans to exit refinancing, sneaky carrying costs, and even those interest rate roller coasters. It's clear that the financial side of coach homes is every bit as crucial as the design and construction.
You know, what I find fascinating is how this isn't just about crunching numbers on a spreadsheet. It's about making informed decisions that directly impact your financial future.
Yeah, it's about taking control.
Exactly.
I'm glad we had this conversation. It's starting to make a lot more sense now. Before we move on to part 3, where we'll explore those garage goals conversions and the world of land severance, what's resonating with you most so far? What's the most important takeaway?
For me, it's that sense of empowerment, realizing that with the right knowledge and planning, we can create our own financial opportunities.
You don't have to just sit back and wait for things to happen.
Exactly. We can transform those underutilized spaces into income-generating assets. It's about taking control of our financial futures.
I love that. It's inspiring.
It is.
So let's take all this newfound knowledge and dive into those garage gold conversions and the fascinating world of land severance in part 3.
Let's do it.
Welcome back to the deep dive. We've covered a ton of ground already. What coach homes are, why they're such a hot investment, the crucial steps for designing, building, and financing them. We even talked about some bonus level strategies like garage conversions and land severance to really maximize those cash flow possibilities. But now I want to unpack JG's garage gold concept. Sounds so intriguing.
It is. It's interesting how often we overlook the potential that's right in front of us. People see garages as purely functional spaces. But as JG pointed out, they can be hidden treasure chests.
It's like finding a $20 bill in your old coat pocket.
Exactly.
Pure joy.
Ah.
But it's not just about slapping some drywall on a garage and calling it a day, right?
Nope. The webinar really emphasized the importance of strategic design, even in these conversions.
Oh yeah, design is always key.
Absolutely. Things like maximizing natural light,
Yeah.
incorporating features like eat-in kitchen peninsulas, those small details can make a huge difference
I really can.
in attracting quality tenants and commanding those higher rents.
It's like those before and after home renovation shows, but for garages.
Exactly.
And speaking of transformations, Visture showcased some amazing makeovers in their videos, turning those drab garages into stylish modern dwellings that blend seamlessly into the existing property.
It's amazing what they can do.
It's about more than just aesthetics too, right?
Right.
That curb appeal adds real value to your investment.
Absolutely.
Plus, a well-designed coach home enhances the entire neighborhood.
For sure.
And let's not forget that case study JG shared, where a converted garage turned into a 2-bedroom rental unit, generating $30,000 a year.
That's incredible.
It's almost like having a whole extra job, but without the work.
Exactly.
It really shows what's possible with some creative thinking
Mm.
and strategic planning.
It does, and it's a particularly appealing strategy. For those who already have a detached garage, that's not being used to its full potential.
Okay. I'm officially on board the garage conversion train. But I'm guessing there are some unique challenges we need to be aware of. Garages aren't exactly built for habitation, are they?
True. One thing to remember is that garages often lack the basic infrastructure needed for a living space.
Like what?
You'll probably need to upgrade the electrical, plumbing, and insulation to meet building codes.
Makes sense.
And then there's parking. If you're converting the garage, you'll need to make alternative parking arrangements.
Can't forget about those tenants' cars. Maybe that's an opportunity to get creative with landscaping and carve out some designated parking spaces elsewhere on the property.
That's a great idea. And remember those local bylaws we talked about earlier?
Oh, yeah. Those pesky bylaws.
They'll come into play here too.
Of course.
You'll need to make sure your garage conversion complies with all those regulations regarding lot coverage, setbacks, and any other requirements specific to your area.
So there's a lot to consider. But hey, if it means turning my dusty old storage space into a cash-flowing asset, I'm willing to put in the work.
I think it's worth it.
Now, before we wrap up, let's talk about that other strategy JG mentioned, land severance. Can you break down how that works and why it might be a good option for some investors?
Land severance can be a game changer, especially for those with larger properties. It essentially involves dividing your existing property into smaller lots, which opens up the possibility of building additional units.
So you're multiplying your property's potential.
Exactly.
I like it. But I have a feeling this isn't as simple as drawing a line down the middle of your backyard.
You're right. Land severance is complex. It requires careful planning and strict adherence to regulations.
So it's not for the DIY crowd.
Not really. You'll need to consult with surveyors,
Yeah.
lawyers,
Well,
and your local municipality to make sure everything is done by the book.
and I bet factors like zoning, access, and utilities also play a role.
They do. It's not a strategy for everyone, but for those with the right property. and the patience to navigate the process, land severance can unlock a whole new level of financial potential.
It's like those hidden level bonus rounds in video games.
Oh, yes.
Discovering a secret path to even greater rewards. So to wrap up our Coach Home deep dive, we've explored what they are, why they're such a hot investment opportunity, and those crucial steps for designing, building, and financing them. We even uncovered some bonus-level strategies, like garage conversions and land severance, to take those cash flow possibilities to the next level.
It's remarkable how much potential lies in something as ordinary as a backyard or an old garage. Coach homes aren't just about adding square footage, they're about reshaping our living spaces, creating more housing options, and building wealth in a smart and sustainable way.
It's like a win-win for everyone. Homeowners increase their property value, renters get access to more affordable housing, and communities benefit from increased density without sacrificing those valuable green spaces. So as we wrap up this episode of The Deep Dive, we want to leave you with a challenge. If you were considering adding a coach home to your property, what's the first step you would take? Based on what you've learned today, would you grab a measuring tape and start sketching out those dream designs? Or would you dive into those local bylaws and explore financing options?
It's your turn to take the reins. And who knows, maybe you'll be sharing your own coach home success story on a future episode of The Deep Dive.
Until then, happy investing.